Uh, just first of all, I want to welcome the guests, and I must say that you have been very busy for the last hour and so on. But the EPA is a necessary evil because we need the EPA to make sure that we have good quality water in the country, and that's very important. And it's only when the old saying goes, when the well runs dry, that people start looking. So when we have alerts in relation to water quality and everything else, then people are asking questions, why is this happening? But just in your report, at the beginning of your report, you said overall there was improvements, but overall as well, you said that the report, it was negative. Could you explain that to me? There was improvements in certain areas, but in the overall report you said the decline in water quality. Would you just explain that?
So what I believe you're referring to is our indicators report, which we published in July. And what we saw there is the biology improving in some areas, but it was declining in other areas. So to me, what I always think of, we're running fast to stand still. We see improvements in some areas happening, and we see declines in others that is offsetting them. So overall, we don't see, in that case, we saw a net improvement of 7 water bodies, very, very small, and nowhere near what we need to see in terms of overall improvements in the biology. And so that's the biology when you're looking at algae, plants, species in the water, the nutrients levels. We have seen an increase in 2022 in terms of nitrate levels in all water, in all areas around the country.
In relation to the criteria that's used across Europe from the European Commission, because I find a lot of EU directives that come into Ireland that the Irish government insists that we go further than the rest of Europe. In relation to the Commission and in relation to the rules and regulations that they're using for the criteria that you have to use, is it higher than other European countries, or is it the same, or what is it?
So in terms of the criteria that the Commission have set to produce the interim review, we have followed those criteria as set out in the Commission's implementing decision. And I was saying earlier, they are very tightly prescribed. We follow them as they are written. All that data and the application of those tests is published as well online.
In relation to water quality, a lot of agencies have responsibility, from the local authorities, the EPA, the fisheries boards, and these agencies, and even forestry and government itself. And I feel then it's not Europe, and I mean this, it's not coming from the EPA, but it's coming from Europe. They seem to think that farming is creating a big difficulty, and we don't need farming, and do everything we can to put them out of business. And that's the way farmers think, and particularly in my area. I mean, it was said here by previous speakers, we have some fine quality young people that has come into farming, and these people are really very much environmentally friendly. They're more probably environmentally friendly than the department itself, and yet with the rules and regulations that are coming in, it's making it more difficult for them to actually farm. Every time they seem to do improvements and to do it in an environmentally friendly way, they're still not enough for Europe. It's not enough for the department, and and we seem to be more severe on farmers than we are, let's say, on local authorities, on state agencies, on forestry, and everybody else. Would you make a comment on that?
Well, I mean, we need as many young farmers into the agricultural sector, into farming as we can get, and adopting good practices. And I know there are good examples right around the country. We've all heard of them. We don't target any one particular sector. We are an independent organisation, the EPA. We are looking at our data from a completely independent scientific basis. We have talked extensively about our analysis and the impact that farming has had on it. We are also the environmental regulator for Uisce Éireann. We have taken prosecutions against Uisce Éireann where we're warranted 28 in total, and are auditing and reviewing Uisce Éireann wastewater treatment plants on a regular basis all year round. And we also have an enhanced role that was given to us under the Nitrates Action Programme in terms of developing a national agricultural inspections programme to direct local authorities in terms of their farm inspections, providing guidance, providing support, and ensuring that focus on enforcement is there as well. So farmers, you know, we need farmers as part in terms of sorting the solution. We need farmers to be engaged in this. They need to be supported in terms of guidance, in terms of incentives, and for those that don't comply, enforcement also has a role. So really, we don't work in terms of targeting any particular sector. We're driven very much by what we see in the environment.
And just in relation to the enforcement, and you spoke about it earlier, and you were saying that you brought Irish Water to the courts, and in relation to the amount of cases, and if you haven't the information now, you might send it on to me, in relation to prosecutions over, maybe say, the last 2 years, how many prosecutions has there been, or how many cases have you brought to the courts? How many of them have been farmers? How many of them have been local authorities, fishery boards or forestry? Would you be able to answer that, or would you be able to get that information for me?
So in terms of the last 2 years,
the number of the local authorities are responsible for the inspections of farms under the Good Agricultural Practice Regulation. So they're the competent authority for undertaking the inspections and any follow-up compliance, and you can be cross-reported, the cross-compliance, or it can go up as far as prosecution where it's necessary. But the number of prosecutions of farmers is low. I think there might be only one or small number completed. Inland Fisheries Ireland obviously also can take prosecutions where there is a fish kill, or very usually on the severe end of the scale, yes, in terms of damage to a water body and fish kills. I don't have data in terms of the numbers of prosecutions they have taken, but I'm sure they'd be able to provide.
Sorry, who actually does the inspections? Is it the local authorities, or?
The local authorities do most of the inspections under the Good Agricultural Practice. For the farm inspections, DAFM, the Department of Agriculture, also do a certain level of what's called derogation inspections as well. So. Yeah,
I suppose it's very difficult for them to bring prosecutions when they're the biggest offenders themselves. I mean, I see, just take Newport, and to be fair to the EPA, you have cited in relation to wastewater, what's happening in the no treatment plant there. And this is happening, I saw in Westport and Belmullet, where there was new treatment plants put in over the last number of years, and the quality of water that has improved, particularly in the beaches and particularly in the swimming areas, but also the water quality has improved because a treatment plant makes a lot of difference when it's there. And I suppose I find now in relation to the local authorities, you know, they're the ones that, particularly now, not for farmers, but even for rural houses, they grant planning permissions. They're going out now examining septic tanks that have been there for 20 and 30 years. They only go out if there's a complaint made, and if they go out and find a problem with somebody there that might cost 15 or 20,000 to resolve, they won't give them a grant because they're not in a catchment area where grant aid can be grant-aided. So I think the EPA should be making observations. I know it's not your job, that there should be some grant available made if there is a problem, and if a problem needs to be dealt with. Very unfair to see people that have already got a mortgage struggling to live, and the next thing the local authority comes out and examines their septic tank and finds there's a very serious difficulty there, and not a grant or any help or support there for them. But overall, I want to say that in relation to the EPA, we do need to have people there to make sure that the water quality is good. We need to make sure that but we need fairness in the system as well. And I know that you try to be fair, but also the industry. My final question is: are they examined, and the water quality coming out of a lot of industries in this country? Do they get the same examination as farmers do? Because I often wonder about some of these industries. And I saw down in North Mayo, and I won't name it now because they're not here to defend themselves, but the mess they left, and it took the local authorities and the state, and I say a lot of money to clean up a major mess that was there. And how it was ever let in the first place, I don't know, but it was there, and they just pulled out and left a mess after them. So the question is, I suppose, is in relation to inspections. Do farmers get more inspections than businesses, than local authorities, than the fishery boards, and everybody else?
I don't have the exact number in terms of farm. I think there was about 2,000 farm inspections overall in terms of 130,000 farmers, if approximately is my understanding. The EPA licenses the large industrial and waste facilities, of which we have about 800. I'll use approximate numbers because I don't have the exact but in around 800, which covers from some of the intensive agriculture sites up to your pharmaceuticals and your power stations and waste facilities and landfills. And we have a whole inspection regime and enforcement regime. And obviously we take sanction where necessary, from compliance notices up to and including prosecutions. We publish every quarter priority sites list, it's called, which are the worst performers, as a kind of a name and shame, but also to really encourage compliance, which has been very successful in getting companies to either invest in advance and to get themselves off the list, to put in the measures they need to put in and the actions and investment to improve their compliance. So there is a lot of focus on the industrial site. They do get inspected regularly. They have to comply with a licence as well. So, I think everybody has a role to play in water quality. We've highlighted the focus today is on agriculture because of the report and the Commission requirements, but there are a range of pressures that we've said on water quality, and they're all going to need to be addressed. The septic tanks, the wastewater, forestry, peat, the full spectrum urban areas, runoff, are all going to need to be addressed in order to improve our water quality.
Thank you very much, Stacey.
I mean, I'd like to just come in and add to that and say you bring up a good point, which we haven't dwelled on enough in this committee, which is the value of clean water. And we know it is important from our health in terms of the water we drink, in terms of food preparation as an input to industrial processing, including the agri-food industry. Farmers need clean water. It's an integral part of our tourism industry, so we cannot lose the clean waters that we have in this country. Time and again, Fáilte Ireland report that people come to this country because of the clean, unspoilt environment. So really the trends that we've been seeing in the last number of years have been going in the wrong direction. And we must reverse those trends and deal with, as Mary said, all sources of water pollution, so that we get and have and hold and maintain good water quality in the country.
Thank you.